The hammer cracked against wood like a gunshot, and Kestrel Voss felt his world shatter. Sold to Magistrate Corwin Thorne for 800 gold pieces. The auctioneer's voice boomed across the crowded square as Dahlia Ravencrest was led away. In chains, her emerald eyes finding his through the jeering crowd one last time before she disappeared into Thorne's gilded carriage. 3 months earlier, Kestrel had been nothing more than a saddle tramp drifting through the valley when his horse threw a shoe outside Ravencrest Farm. Caspar Ravencrest, a weathered man with kind eyes, had offered him work in exchange for repairs and a hot meal. What was meant to be a single night became weeks, as Kestrel found himself drawn to the man's daughter, a fierce, intelligent woman who could debate philosophy while milking cows and shoot a rifle with deadly accuracy. Dahlia had initially viewed him with suspicion, her copper hair catching firelight as she challenged his every word during evening conversations. But walls crumbled when he helped deliver a difficult calf during a storm, working beside her through the night without complaint. Their first kiss happened at dawn, rain-soaked and exhausted, surrounded by the sweet smell of hay and new life. "Not like the others who passed through," she had whispered against his lips, her hands tangled in his dark hair. "Maybe because I wasn't passing through anymore," he'd replied, meaning every word. But their happiness was built on borrowed time. Caspar's debts to Magistrate Thorne had mounted beyond salvation bad harvests, his wife's medical expenses before. Her death and Thorne's deliberately inflated interest rates had created an impossible burden. The magistrate, a cruel man who collected beautiful things like trophies, had been circling the farm like a vulture for months. When foreclosure came, Thorne made his true intentions clear. Under the valley's archaic laws, unpaid debts could be settled through indentured servitude. Dahlia would work off her father's debt in Thorne's mansion of fate. They all knew meant something far worse than housework. Kestrel had burst into the farmhouse that morning, his saddlebags bulging with the gold he'd won in an all-night poker game in town. "It's enough," he'd said breathlessly. "I counted it twice, enough to pay Thorne and have some left over." But they were too late. Caspar lay motionless on the kitchen floor, a cup of poisoned tea still warm beside him. Thorne's men had already dragged Dahlia away, claiming the old man had signed confession papers before his tragic heart attack. No confession papers could ever be found. But Thorne's word carried weight in the corrupt courts. Now, watching the carriage disappear in a cloud of dust, Kestrel's hand instinctively moved to the Colt .45 at his hip. Around him the crowd dispersed, already forgetting the tragedy they'd witnessed. But one figure lingered, a hooded woman who approached with purposeful steps. "You loved her," the stranger said, her voice carrying a strange accent. Kestrel nodded, not trusting his voice. "Then perhaps we can help each other. My name is Lysandra Nightwhisper, and I have reasons to see Magistrate Thorne destroyed." Pale hands emerged from dark sleeves, revealing intricate tattoos that seemed to move in the flickering torchlight. "But first, tell me, how far are you willing to go to save her?" "As far as it takes," Kestrel replied without hesitation, his gray eyes hardening with deadly resolve. "Even if it costs me everything." Lysandra smiled, and shadows seemed to dance around her like living things. The abandoned mill outside town groaned in the wind like a dying beast as Lysandra led Kestrel through its rotting doorframe. Inside, candles flickered to life without flame, illuminating walls covered in maps, sketches of Thorne's mansion, and symbols that hurt to look at directly. "You're a witch," Kestrel said, hand resting on his gun. Among other things, Lysandra threw back her hood, revealing silver hair and violet eyes that held centuries of secrets. "Thorne murdered my sister 5 years ago. Like your Dahlia, she was purchased to settle a debt. Unlike Dahlia, she tried to escape." She gestured to a portrait on the wall, a young woman with Lysandra's features, but warm brown eyes instead of cold violet. Nerita was 19. "Thorne claimed she fell from his tower window, but I found the bruises on her throat." Kestrel studied the witch's face, seeing his own grief reflected there. "Why haven't you killed him yourself?" "Magic has rules, Drifter. I cannot simply strike down a mortal man without consequence, but you..." She circled him like a predator. "You can walk where I cannot go, and with my help, you might actually succeed." From a wooden chest, she withdrew items that made Kestrel's skin crawl, a vial of something that moved like liquid shadow, a knife with runes carved into its obsidian blade, and a pendant that whispered secrets when the wind touched it. Thorns. Mansion is a fortress, Lysandra explained, spreading detailed blueprints across a table. 30 armed guards, walls topped with broken glass, hunting dogs that can track a man for miles. But tonight is the harvest festival. Half his men will be drunk in town, and he'll be distracted by his ... entertainment. She pointed to a section of the mansion marked in red ink. Dahlia will be kept in the tower room until he formally claims her tomorrow night. These stairs lead up from the wine cellar, but they're watched by his personal guardsmen who've killed dozens without blinking. Then I'll go through them. With what? 6 bullets against 30 men. Lysandra laughed bitterly. No, we need subtlety. This potion will make you invisible for 1 hour, but it comes with a price. What price? Each minute of invisibility costs 1 year of your life. Use all 60 minutes, and you'll die the moment it wears off. Kestrel picked up the vial, watching the dark liquid swirl hypnotically, and the knife. It can cut through any lock, any chain, any barrier, including the protective wards Thorn has placed around his tower. But it thirsts for blood. Once drawn, it must taste death before it can be sheathed. You're asking me to become a killer? I'm asking you to become her savior. Lysandra's eyes blazed with intensity. Thorn has murdered, raped, and stolen his way to power for 20 years. The valley bleeds while he grows fat on suffering. Would you let your conscience matter more than Dahlia's life? Through the mill's broken windows, they could hear distant music and laughter from the festival. Somewhere in that fortified mansion, Dahlia waited in chains while a monster planned her destruction. Kestrel uncorked the vial, and the smell of winter nights and forgotten graves filled the air. How do I know you won't betray me once Thorn is dead? Because, dear Drifter, I need you alive to retrieve something from Thorn's vault. My sister's heart. She keeps preserved in a jar, like some sick trophy. Without it, Narita's spirit can never find rest. The liquid burned going down, tasting of copper pennies and desperate dreams. Almost immediately, Kestrel felt his body begin to fade, becoming translucent like morning mist. Remember, Lysandra? Called as he stepped toward the door, you have 1 hour. Save the girl, kill the monster, and bring me my sister's heart. Fail at any of these, and we all die tonight. Kestrel drew the obsidian blade, feeling its hunger pulse through his palm like a second heartbeat.
Oh.
In the distance, Thorn's mansion blazed with torchlight, a castle of horrors where the woman he loved waited for salvation or death. I'm coming, Dahlia, he whispered to the night wind, then ran toward his destiny like a ghost seeking vengeance. Kestrel moved through Thorn's estate like death itself, his invisible form slipping past guards who never saw the shadow that brushed against their shoulders. The obsidian blade hummed with anticipation in his translucent grip, its runes glowing faintly each time it sensed approaching violence. 20 minutes had passed since he'd drunk Lysandra's potion, 20 years of his life already spent, but he felt no different yet. The witch had warned him that aging would hit all at once when the magic faded. The mansion's wine cellar reeked of vintage burgundy and rat droppings. Ancient bottles, limestone walls, and in the far corner, exactly where Lysandra's map indicated, a narrow staircase spiraled upward into darkness. 2 guards flanked the entrance, both armed with military rifles and the dead eyes of professional killers. Kestrel studied them, remembering what Lysandra had said about the blade. Once drawn, it must taste death. These men had probably murdered dozens for Thorn, but killing in cold blood still felt wrong, even invisible and desperate. Then he heard the scream. High above, echoing down through stone and timber, came Dahlia's voice, raised in pain and defiance. The sound shattered his hesitation like glass. The obsidian blade whispered through the first guard's throat before the man could blink, and the second died with his rifle half raised, blood pooling around their boots in perfect silence. 38 minutes remaining. The tower stairs seemed endless, winding up past floors where Thorne's other acquisitions lived in luxury and horror, women who'd been broken by years of captivity, their eyes empty as dolls. Some pressed their faces to barred windows as his footsteps passed, sensing something amiss, but unable to see their invisible liberator. Another scream from above, closer now. Kestrel took the stairs 3 at a time, rage burning away his last. Traces of mercy. More guards appeared, 6 men playing cards outside a heavy oak door, weapons within easy reach. They died without understanding what killed them, cards fluttering to the floor like snow as crimson blossomed across their uniforms. 28 minutes. The obsidian blade cut through the door's iron locks like butter, its hunger temporarily sated by fresh death. Beyond lay a room that made Kestrel's stomach turn, a medieval torture chamber, disguised as a nobleman's boudoir. Silk curtains couldn't hide the chains bolted to walls, or the stains on marble floors that no amount of cleaning could erase. Dahlia hung from manacles, her dress torn, defiance blazing in her green eyes even as tears streaked her face.
Magistrate.
Thorne circled her like a vulture, his pale hands trailing across her skin while she tried to pull away. "Such spirit," Thorne murmured, his voice cultured and cruel. "I do so enjoy breaking wild things." "Your father thought his debts could protect you, but dead men make poor negotiators. You poisoned him." Dahlia spat through gritted teeth. "Proved nothing. And even if you could, who would believe the word of a farmer's whore against a magistrate?" Thorne's laugh was oil sliding over broken glass. "No, my dear. You belong to me now, just like all the others. The only question is how long your spirit lasts before I crush it completely." Kestrel materialized behind Thorne like a nightmare-given form, the obsidian blade sliding between the magistrate's ribs with surgical precision. Thorne's eyes went wide with shock and pain, his mouth opening in a soundless scream as he felt death's cold touch. "The only question," Kestrel whispered in the dying man's ear, "is whether hell will have you." Thorne collapsed in a spreading pool of his own evil, and Kestrel caught Dahlia as she fell from the chains. She trembled in his arms, disbelief and hope warring in her tear-filled eyes. "Kestrel, how did you?"
Magic.
He said simply, using the obsidian blade to cut through her remaining bonds. "We need to move. I have 8 minutes before the spell breaks." But even as he spoke, he felt the first wave of aging hit him like a physical blow. His hand suddenly ached, his vision blurred momentarily, and when Dahlia gasped, he knew she could see the silver threads appearing in his dark hair. "What's happening to you?" she cried, touching his face with gentle fingers. "The price of loving you," he replied, then pulled her toward a window that looked out over the estate's grounds. Far below, chaos was erupting as guards discovered their dead comrades and raised the alarm. 6 minutes remaining. "You're dying," Dahlia whispered as more silver streaked through Kestrel's hair and deep lines appeared around his gray eyes. The aging was accelerating now, 20 years of life compressed into minutes. And she could see him fighting to stay conscious. Not yet. He gritted through teeth that suddenly felt loose in his skull. "Lysandra needs something from Thorne's vault. Without it, we're all dead anyway." He led her through corridors now filled with shouting guards and barking dogs, his invisible form flickering like a candle in wind. The obsidian blade had grown warm in his grip, its hunger still unsatisfied, despite the blood it had already tasted. Thorne's private study lay behind a door of reinforced steel, but the magical blade sliced through it like paper. Inside, among ledgers documenting decades of crimes and corruption, stood a massive safe built into the stone wall. Strange symbols covered its surface, the same protective wards Lysandra had warned about. "What are we looking for?" Dahlia asked, supporting his weight as another wave of aging made him stumble. A heart Kestrel managed, fighting to stay focused as his body continued its supernatural decay, preserved in a jar. Lysandra's sister Thorne kept it as some kind of trophy. The obsidian blade cut through the safe's wards with an SL like tearing silk, and the heavy door swung open to reveal horrors beyond imagination. Shelves lined with jars containing floating organs, photographs of Thorne's victims, and in the center, a crystal container holding a perfectly preserved human heart that still beat with unnatural rhythm. Dahlia recoiled as the heart pulsed faster, sensing their presence. Dear God, what kind of monster was he? The kind this world is better without, Kestrel replied, carefully lifting the jar. The moment his fingers touched crystal, visions flooded his mind. Night whispers final moments, her desperate attempt to escape, Thorn's hands around her throat as she struggled against the tower window. The preserved heart was a magical anchor, keeping her spirit trapped between life and death. Unable to rest or move on, 2 minutes remaining. Shouts echoed from the corridors had found Thorn's body and were sweeping the mansion room by. Kestrel's invisibility was failing, his form becoming more solid with each passing second. Soon they would be trapped with nowhere to run. There, Dahlia pointed toward another window, this one facing the mansion's back gardens. If we can reach the stables, we might. She'll never finish the sentence. Captain Ulrich Mordain, Thorn's most trusted killer, stepped from behind a tapestry with his rifle already trained on where Kestrel stood. The man's eyes were pale as winter ice, and his scarred face held no trace of human mercy. Invisible man. Mordain said conversationally, I can't see you, but I can hear your breathing. And the lady's eyes tell me exactly where you're standing. Drop the knife, or she dies first. Kestrel felt the last of his invisibility fade away, revealing him fully to Mordain's sight. The obsidian blade pulsed with frustrated hunger it had. Tasted blood, but not yet fulfilled its purpose. One more death was required before it could be sheathed. 1 minute remaining. You killed a good man tonight, Mordain continued, his finger tightening on the trigger. Magistrate Thorn gave me purpose, money, respect. I'll have to find work elsewhere, and that makes me quite annoyed. Thorn was a murderer and a rapist, Dahlia said fiercely, stepping partially in front of Kestrel despite the gun pointed at her heart. True enough, but he paid well, and in my experience, all employers are monsters in their own way. At least he was honest about it. Kestrel calculated distances and angles, knowing he had one chance before the agent killed him and left Dahlia defenseless. The captain was fast, professional, probably unbeatable in a fair fight. But Kestrel wasn't planning to fight fair. Tell me, Captain, he said, shifting his weight almost imperceptibly. Do you believe in magic? I believe in bullets and blood, Mordain replied. Everything else is just the obsidian blade left Kestrel's hand like a striking snake, crossing the room faster than thought. Mordain's shot went wide as the magical weapon punched through his chest, finally satisfying its hunger for death. The captain collapsed with a look of surprise frozen on his scarred face. 30 seconds, Kestrel. Felt his knees buckle as decades of aging hit him all at once. His hair went completely white, his face became a map of wrinkles, and his hands shook with the palsy of advanced age. But his eyes still blazed with love and determination as he pressed Nerita's heart into Dahlia's hands. Take this to Lysandra, he whispered, his voice now cracked and ancient. She'll know what to do. I won't leave you, Dahlia cried, tears streaming down her face as she watched the man she loved wither away before her eyes. You have to. The spell, ... breaking, ... The world went white. Dahlia knelt in the ruins of Thorn's study, holding Kestrel's motionless form as guards pounded on the door. His hair had gone snow-white, his face carved with a lifetime of lines, but his chest still rose and fell with shallow breaths. Whatever Lysandra's spell had done to him, it had stopped just short of death, perhaps because the obsidian blade had finally claimed its required victims. Still alive, old man? She whispered, pressing her lips to his weathered forehead. Then, we're both getting out of here. The crystal jar, containing Nerita's heart, pulsed with ethereal light, growing brighter as angry voices approached. Dahlia had grown up on a farm. She knew how to think fast when cornered. The study's massive window faced the mansion's ornamental pond 30 feet below. Not an easy jump, but better than facing a dozen armed killers. She wrapped the heart, jar in curtain fabric, then lifted Kestrel with strength born of desperation. He weighed almost nothing now, his body consumed by the magical aging process. But his eyes fluttered open as she carried him toward the window.
Dahlia.
He croaked, his voice barely audible. Leave me. Save yourself. Shut up, you foolish man. We're both leaving. She kicked through the window glass just as guards burst through the study door, then leaped into darkness with the man she loved cradled against her chest. The ornamental pond broke their fall with a tremendous splash, cold water shocking them, both back to full consciousness. Kestrel surfaced gasping, his aged body shaking with cold and exhaustion. Around them, lily pads and decorative fish swirled in confusion while torchlight blazed from the broken window above. Shouts echoed across the estate grounds as Thorne's remaining men organized a manhunt. "Can you walk?" Dahlia asked, supporting. "His weight in the shallow water, I can try." Each step was agony, but love proved stronger than failing flesh. Together, they stumbled toward the estate's outer walls, Nerita's heart casting an eerie glow through its wrappings. The abandoned mill appeared like a sanctuary in the pre-dawn darkness. Candlelight flickering through its broken windows, Lysandra stood waiting in the doorway, her violet eyes reflecting the approaching dawn as she watched them approach with obvious relief. "You succeeded," the witch said simply, but her voice carried profound emotion as her gaze fixed on the wrapped jar. Dahlia carried your sister's heart, Dahlia replied, unwrapping the crystal container. "Thorne is dead, and his guards are in chaos. But KSTREL, ... the spell." Lysandra took the jar with trembling hands, cradling it like a lost child finally returned home. The preserved heart beat faster in her presence, recognizing its sister's touch. 20 years of life, compressed into minutes. "He should be dead, but he's not," Dahlia said fiercely. "There has to be something you can do." The witch studied Kestrel's ancient features, seeing past the wrinkles to the soul beneath.
It's the match.
"Has run its course, but love. Love is the strongest force in any realm. Your devotion to each other created a bridge his spirit could not cross into death." She set Nerita's heart on the mill's altar, then began chanting in a language older than civilization. The jar glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with Kestrel's labored breathing, while shadows danced across the walls like living things. "I can reverse some of what was done," Lysandra continued, her hands weaving complex patterns in the air above the heart. "Not all that would require powers beyond my reach, but enough to give him back 20 years of the life he spent saving you." "What's the price?" Kestrel asked weakly, knowing magic always demanded payment. "No price for this," the witch replied, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "My sister's spirit is finally free to rest, thanks to your sacrifice. This is my gift, to the love that made such bravery possible." Light exploded from Nerita's heart as it crumbled to dust. The magic that had preserved it for 5 years finally released. The glow enveloped Kestrel like warm sunshine, and Dahlia watched in amazement as some of the years melted away from his features. His hair remained silver-touched, his face still lined with wisdom beyond his actual age, but the deathly frailty disappeared as vitality flowed back into his tired body. When the light faded, he looked like a man of 50 instead of 90, aged by magic but alive and strong enough to love her for decades to come. "It's not perfect," Lysandra admitted, "but it's what I can give." Kestrel stood without assistance, taking Dahlia in his arms as the first rays of true dawn painted the sky gold and crimson. "Perfect enough," he said, his voice restored to its familiar warmth. "More than enough." Behind them, smoke rose from Thorne's burning mansion as his corrupt empire collapsed into ash and memory. 6 months later, the valley had transformed beyond recognition. Without Thorne's strangling influence, farmers prospered, merchants traded freely, and justice returned. 2 courtrooms that had long echoed with corruption. The magistrate's former mansion had been converted into a school for orphan children, while his vast wealth, liberated from hidden vaults, funded hospitals and libraries throughout the region. Kestrel stood in the doorway of the rebuilt Ravencrest farmhouse, watching Dahlia tend her vegetable garden with the same fierce concentration she brought to everything in life. Silver now threaded her copper hair as well as sympathetic magic that had bonded them more deeply than any wedding ceremony. Why, they had both aged in that terrible night, but together they had found something stronger than youth: purpose. The Hendricks. "Boy is asking about you again," Dahlia called, not looking up from her tomatoes. "Says he wants to learn to track like you do." Kestrel smiled, touching the Colt .45 that still rode his hip. He'd become the valley's unofficial sheriff hunting. down the remnants of Thorne's criminal network and teaching young people to defend their communities. The work was dangerous but necessary, and it gave meaning to the years Lysandra had returned to him. Let him come tomorrow. I'll start him with reading trail signs. They had decided against children of their own. The magical aging had made Dahlia. Baron and Kestrel carried concerns about what his transformed blood might pass to offspring. But they had become parents to dozens of valley children in different ways, teaching skills that would protect the next generation from men like Thorne. A horse approached through the afternoon heat, and Kestrel recognized the rider immediately. Lysandra had changed since her sister's spirit found peace. The cold distance in her violet eyes had melted into something approaching warmth, and she smiled now, instead of merely existing. "Still playing farmers, I see," the witch said, dismounting gracefully despite her travel-worn clothes. "Still wandering the roads," Dahlia replied, embracing her friend. They had grown close over the months, bonded by shared trauma and mutual respect. "Not wandering, hunting." Lysandra's expression grew serious as she pulled a wanted poster from her saddlebags. "There's another Thorne out there, Lord Cassius Dreadmore, in the Eastern Territories. Same appetites, same methods, but with an army instead of corrupt judges." Kestrel studied the poster, recognizing the type immediately. Cold eyes, weak chin, the soft hands of a man who ordered others to commit his violence. How many girls? Dozens, maybe hundreds. His personal guard raid farming villages and bring him whatever catches his fancy. Local authorities are either bought or too frightened to act. Dahlia looked between them, seeing the direction of the conversation. "You're leaving." "We're leaving," Kestrel corrected gently. "If you'll have me. This valley is safe now, but there are others that aren't? Can't save everyone, but maybe we can save enough. And I suppose you'll need magical assistance," Lysandra added with a slight smile. "Dreadmore has a court wizard who makes Thorne look like a chore boy." Dahlia was quiet for a long moment, looking across the fields her father had worked, the home she had rebuilt from ashes and memories. Then she nodded decisively. "The Hendricks boy is old enough to watch the farm for a season, and you're right, there are other daughters out there who need saving." That evening, they sat around the kitchen table planning their campaign like generals before a war. Lysandra spread maps and intelligence reports, while Dahlia cleaned her rifle, and Kestrel sharpened the obsidian blade that had never left his side. The weapon had grown quieter since Thorne's death. Its terrible hunger satisfied for now, but it would wake again when justice called. "Dreadmore's fortress is here," Lysandra pointed to a mountain stronghold marked in red. 30 miles from the nearest village, surrounded by ice and wind. Its men patrol in groups of 20, and they take no prisoners. "Sounds familiar?" Kestrel observed dryly. "But this time, we have advantages. You're not invisible for one desperate hour. You're experienced, trained, and angry. I'm not driven by grief and revenge. I'm focused on justice." And Dahlia, which smiled at the farmer's daughter. Dahlia has become something Thorne never lived to see, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Outside, night fell across the peaceful valley. But in the farmhouse kitchen, 3 unlikely allies planned the liberation of another magistrate's victims. They were older now, scarred by loss and hardened by experience, but they had found something worth fighting for in the ashes of their old lives: the drifter, the farmer's daughter, and the witch who had helped them discover love stronger than death itself. Lord Cassius Dreadmore's mountain fortress rose from ice and stone like a frozen nightmare, its black walls scarred by decades of winter storms. From their hiding place in the alpine forest, Kestrel studied the stronghold through field glasses, while Dahlia checked her rifle's scope, and Lysandra prepared spells that would either save them or destroy them all. 47 guards visible, Kestrel reported, his breath misting in the frigid air. Patrols every 15 minutes, overlapping fields of fire, no obvious weak points. "The wizard's tower is here." Lysandra pointed to a structure that seemed to twist reality around itself, walls bending at impossible angles. "Malachar the Bone Speaker. It's been feeding Dreadmore information about our approach for days." "Then he knows we're coming," Dahlia said grimly, chambering around. "He knows 3 people are coming. He doesn't know what we've become." Past year, their campaign against Dreadmore's network had forged them into something new. Kestrel had evolved beyond a simple gunfighter into a tactician who could read terrain like scripture. Dahlia had transformed from farmer's daughter into a sniper whose bullets found their targets across impossible distances. And Lysandra had grown from a revenge-seeking witch into something approaching a guardian angel of the oppressed. They had freed 17 villages, liberated over 200 captives, and left Dreadmore's organization bleeding from 1,000 wounds. Tonight would end it forever. The girls are kept in the lower dungeons, Lysandra continued, consulting intelligence gathered from rescued victims, 36 of them, aged 14 to 25. Dreadmore has been saving them for some kind of ritual sacrifice during tomorrow's eclipse. Kestrel felt the obsidian blade stir at his side, its hunger awakening as it sensed approaching violence. The weapon had changed over the months, bonding with him on a level deeper than magic. It no longer thirsted indiscriminately for blood now. It craved only the death of those who preyed on the innocent. "I go in through the main gate," he said, outlining their desperate plan. "Make enough noise to draw every guard in the fortress. Dahlia takes position on the north ridge, picks off anyone who tries to flank me. Lysandra uses the distraction to reach the dungeons and free the prisoners." "That's suicide," Dahlia protested. "Can't fight 40 men alone. I don't have to fight them all, just have to fight them long enough." He kissed her then, tasting snow and determination on her lips, knowing it might be their last moment. "Together, if I don't make it out, you will," she said fiercely. "We didn't survive Thorn just to lose each other to this bastard." The attack began at midnight, under the light of the eclipsing moon. Kestrel walked through the fortress gates. Like death incarnate, the obsidian blade singing its hunger song as guards rushed to meet him. The first wave fell in seconds, their blood steaming on frozen stone, while alarm bells echoed across the mountains. From her sniper's nest, Dahlia's rifle cracked like thunder, each shot precisely placed to eliminate threats before they could coordinate against Kestrel. She had become a ghost of the ridgelines, invisible until her bullets found their marks, then gone again before return fire could locate her position in the dungeons below. Lysandra moved through magical shadows, her spells turning locks to rust and chains to smoke. The imprisoned girls followed her like a river of hope, their eyes wide with disbelief as freedom beckoned after months of despair. But Malachar had been waiting for exactly this moment. The bone speaker materialized in the fortress courtyard, like a nightmare given form. His staff crackling with necromantic power as he raised the recent dead to fight beside the living guards. "You think you can destroy what I've built?" Dreadmore emerged from his keep, dressed in ceremonial robes and wielding an executioner's axe. "I am lord of life and death in these mountains." The battle that followed would be remembered in legend. Kestrel danced between sword and spell, the obsidian blade cutting through flesh and magic alike, while Dahlia's bullets found impossible angles to strike down enemies who thought themselves safely hidden. Lysandra emerged from the dungeons trailing liberated captives and weaving protective barriers around them all. But there were too many enemies, and even legends have limits. Kestrel felt his aged body beginning to fail as multiple wounds slowed. His reflexes. A guard's sword opened his shoulder. Another's spear grazed his ribs. And Malachar's bone magic began sapping his strength with each passing moment. Then Dahlia appeared at his side, her rifle empty but her farmer's strength undaunted. As she swung the weapon like a club, together, she gasped, back to back with the man she loved. "Together," he agreed, raising the obsidian blade one final time. Lysandra's magic joined theirs. Violet fire surrounding the lovers as they made their last stand in the center of Dreadmore's courtyard. The witch had gathered power from every girl they'd saved, every village they'd liberated, every act of love and courage they'd shared over the past year. "You want to see real magic?" Lysandra shouted at Malachar and Dreadmore. "This is what happens when love refuses to surrender." The explosion of light could be seen from 50 miles away, a pillar of silver fire that reached from earth to heaven. When it faded, Dreadmore's fortress was a ruin, his army scattered ash. And the three unlikely heroes stood victorious among the debris of another tyrant's dreams. Kestrel and Dahlia were white-haired now, aged further by the magical battle, but alive and whole. They would return to their valley, train the next generation of protectors, and grow old together in the peace they had fought so hard to create. Lysandra looked younger somehow, as if each act of justice had restored some of her lost humanity. She would continue wandering, but now as a healer rather than an instrument of vengeance. Carrying hope to places where darkness still held sway, the rescued girls clustered around their saviors, their eyes bright with tears of gratitude and newfound freedom. Many would return to families they'd thought never to see again, while others would start new lives in the valley that had become a sanctuary for survivors. "Is it over?" asked Muriel, the youngest of the captives, her voice barely a whisper after. Months of enforced silence. Kestrel knelt beside her, his weathered face gentle, despite the blood and ash that covered it. "It's over, little one. You're free now, and no one will ever hurt you again." As dawn broke over the ruined fortress, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, the three companions began their long journey home. Behind them, the mountain stronghold burned like a funeral pyre for the dreams of tyrants, while ahead lay the promise of peace earned through sacrifice and love that had conquered death itself in the valley below. Spring flowers were already beginning to bloom despite the late snow, and somewhere in the distance, church bells rang to celebrate the dawn of a new day. The drifter had found his home, the farmer's daughter had discovered her strength, and the witch had learned that some kinds of magic were worth any price. Their love story had begun with an auction block and chains, but it ended with freedom, ringing across the mountains like the sound of silver bells, promising that no matter how dark the night, Ella would always find a way to bring the morning, and in the fertile valleys where children could now sleep safely in their beds. The legend of three unlikely heroes would be passed down through generations, a reminder that ordinary people, armed with extraordinary love, could change the world one rescue at a time. The drifter, the farmer's daughter, and the witch who had shown them that some bonds are stronger than death, some causes worth any sacrifice, and some loves powerful enough to reshape destiny itself. Their greatest adventure was just beginning.